All right, welcome back everybody. This is Eric from Moss Pawn & Gun, and today we got another how-to video for you. We're going to be discussing 3 common Milsurp bolts and how to disassemble them for cleaning. All right, real easy cheesy, basic, simple video. It's probably among the most common bolt mechanisms you're going to come across for Milsurp rifles. We've got one for a Kar 98. We got one for a Mosin, which of course is a very popular bolt action rifle on the market today. And then we have a bolt for a K31 Swiss rifle. We're going to start with the Mosin. Basically this bolt mechanism will just pull right out of the rifle. Make sure the gun's unloaded, hold down the trigger, and this whole mechanism as you see it will come out of the rifle. Let's go ahead and get started on this one. All right, for the Mosin bolt, go ahead and hold the cocking piece in your right hand like this. Hold it firmly, rotate the bolt over into the fired position. All right, this is how it would be in the rifle as if it were fired. You can see the bolt's protruding, or the firing pin rather is protruding. Go ahead and take the connecting bar and bolt off the front. Okay, set this down, rotate the bolt. You'll see this slot that this rides in right here. Just like that, rotate it, pull off. There's those 2 parts. You can remove the extractor if you want, but honestly, it's really a fragile part. You only want to remove it if absolutely necessary. All right, to disassemble the rest of the bolt, what you're going to do is push the firing pin against something kind of soft like this rubber mat. You're going to compress the bolt body against the firing pin spring, like so. And then this is going to thread off the back of the firing pin, your cocking piece. That threads off, slowly decompress, bolt body, firing pin spring, and firing pin. There's your basic components for a Mosin bolt. So again, without slowing down, putting it back together, firing pin spring, firing pin. You're going to compress that. Going back together with it, just like this. Now what you want to do is kind of line up these slots on the back of the bolt with the firing pin, but you'll see that in a moment once we start to put everything together. We're just going to grab the connecting bar and use this flat on the firing pin just to kind of line everything up just like that. In fact, if you look at the draw marks where they cut this line on the back, they almost line up perfectly right where that firing pin is. In a moment here, we're going to show the firing pin protrusion. Go ahead and put the bolt face back on the connecting bar, just like it came off earlier. If I can find out where it lines up, right there. All right, back on the bolt. See how that slides in there perfect? I didn't have to make any changes. This little slot just kind of pick up and it just rides in there just like that. All right, and what we're going to look at now is as everything is pushed together, we want to look at the firing pin protrusion. Now I can tell you right now that firing pin protrusion is probably a little bit excessive. There's a tool that you have in your Mosin kit that actually allows you to check for firing pin protrusion, but I'm just going to use a good old dial caliper and I'm going to pull out the little depth gauge, and as long as it's not longer than 95 thousandths, we're good. So see, we're about 5 thousandths over 95. All right, so what we're going to need to do is go ahead and screw the firing pin in one more turn. So you see where the slot is? We're going to go ahead and in one more turn, just like that. So now we've gone one complete rotation. We're going to put the bolt back on there. Actually, I went the wrong way. We had too much protrusion, so we need to go back out, which is fine. So one more turn out, just like that. One complete turn. A proper reading should be between 95 and 75. You got about 20 thousandths to play with there that it's got to be within. All right, so again, I'm wrong-handed here. Okay, so we're right at 83 thousandths. That's between 75 and 95, so that's acceptable. That's so you don't get a punctured primer and get any gas blowback. Firing pin protrusion set, hold the cocking piece, rotate the bolt up until you hear it snap, like that. It's ready to put back in the gun, and you're good to go. That's the Mosin bolt. Now we're going to move on to the Car 98. When you remove your bolt from your Car 98, you want to make sure that it's in the middle safety position. All the way over locks the bolt shut. All the way to the left is fire, okay? So with the safety in the middle position, straight up, pull the bolt out of the rifle, and it's going to come out just like this. Compress this plunger with your thumb and rotate counterclockwise, just like this. This whole assembly comes out. Now, removing the extractors is not too difficult, but I'm not going to show you this here because it's really not something you're going to do unless something's broken. If you break an extractor, yes, but if nothing's broken, just clean around it because you can really damage these things getting them in and out if you're not careful. Generally though, if you need to do it, you just compress right here and you'll notice that the extractor kind of lifts up like that, and you push forward and it overcomes this little collar and pushes off the front. We're not going to do that because the amount of force required to compress it, again, you don't really want to damage it. So really, you leave that alone. That's your bolt body. All right. Now, traditionally, the reason that a Car 98 has that metal hole in the stock is for a disassembly tool for your bolt. Okay. Now, late war guns don't have it because they were in a hurry. They didn't bother. But if you don't have your gun with you and you just have the bolt, just find you an armorer's block with a blind hole. About like this would be fine. Just something you can push on that you don't mind damaging it. You can also use a block of wood. And what you're going to do, you're going to hold the bolt just like I'm holding it here with a few fingers, and you're going to compress it, okay? Just like this. You're going to rotate. This cocking piece has a step in it. See how it locks those flats? You're going to rotate that off and then slowly decompress. You have your firing pin spring, all right? Your safety selector will actually move freely at that point. Go ahead and rotate it all the way to the right and pull out, okay? And this little guy can also be taken out. If you've got a small punch handy, just compress it. You might even be able to do it with no tools. Compress it with your thumb and just kind of rotate. It'll kind of catch like that. And then to remove it the rest of the way, just take your punch and just finish that on home like this. All right. And then there's your bolt lock for the locking sleeve on the bolt and the spring that powers it. This one's kind of filthy, but it's down in there. Come on. Ooh, that one is filthy. I promise you it's in there though. There it is. All right. So that's your basic components for a Mauser bolt. Now, if you order, say, a spring kit from Wolf for a Mauser bolt, these are the two springs you're going to get, the little one and then this large one that fires the firing pin spring, okay? Generally, a Wolf spring kit for a Mauser is also going to come with a new leaf spring for the magazine and a few other odds and ends, but those are your most commonly replaced ones. A lot of you guys have been emailing me and you're asking me about why your Mauser is getting light strikes with some of the, machine gun ammunition, like the 1950s Yugo ammo and everything like that. It's because the springs are generally a little wore out. If you go with something like a 22 to maybe 24 pound, 1911 spring, that'll actually work quite decent, or you can order the Wolf one. Just get the extended power recoil or the firing pin spring, striker spring, and then you're good to go. You'll be able to shoot that corrosive primed machine gun ammo. So going back together, pretty much opposite. We're just going to put our spring down in the slot here, which it was giving us a little grief, but that's okay. Put this back in there and you can just about compress that with your fingers. Can be a little bit of a chore to get that started, but you can just about do it with your fingers once you get some practice, all right? That just rotates back in place. Firing pin spring on the firing pin. Okay, and the same thing here. We're going to just back on here. You'll have to line up those flats. In the shroud and the firing pin, you'll line up those flats, recompress it. Actually, you want to go ahead and put your safety back in. I forgot to do that. rotate it all the way over this time, because you're going to need that flat to clear, okay? I'll show you why in a moment. Line the flats up again. Go ahead and compress it all the way, all right? You're going to put this back in there, rotate it down. Now this is very important. While you have this bolt assembly compressed, you want to rotate the lever back to the safety position. If you don't, the bolt mechanism is going to close on the fired position, and there's a real pain in the butt to get it to recock. But just for good measure in this video, I'm going to show you what happens when you decock the bolt mechanism and how to fix it. All right, so let's assume that you've done that. All right, it decocked, okay? A lot of people, you won't believe how many people come into the pawn shop and bring me their bolt mechanism where they've done this in the reassembly or disassembly process and they can't get it to recock. Because basically this has to be compressed, pulled out, and then the safety reapplied while there's tension on it. That's what this flat is for. See this little groove? That's actually designed so you can take an 8mm round, stick it in there and pull it out and compress it. I'm going to do that right now for you. This is actually a round for a Mosin, but that's okay. We're going to use an enemy round. All right, we're going to put it in there, and you're going to go ahead and compress this guy. Just like this. All right, you see how I flip the lever over? That's fine. I can go all the way up, and it's still locked. So all you're doing is you're pulling back on this groove, and then that puts it back in that position. So for the rest of the assembly, no big deal. Put it back into the bolt body, rotate. Be careful as you're rotating to not uncock the bolt. That's a common problem. It'll overcome it once. Press this plunger, rotate again, it'll lock in place. The bolt mechanism is ready to drop back in the rifle. It's ready to use. All right, now we're moving on to the K31 bolt. This is actually my personal favorite. I love the design of the K31, a fast operating straight pull Swiss rifle. Very wonderful lineage of rifles that began around 1889, 99, somewhere in that ballpark, 1889 with the original Smith-Rubin. To disassemble this bolt is very, very simple. Grab the firing pin, which also doubles as your safety, pull it back and rotate it halfway, just like that. Grab the charging handle, pull out like this. Pull out and over like that. Rotate the, this sleeve actually surrounds the bolt. So just grab the sleeve and the bolt, rotate, and it'll pop apart. There's your bolt, your sleeve. You want to check the sleeve for cracks. They'll crack right here if you're not careful. You just want to check those out from time to time. So the firing pin itself, go ahead and finish the rotation down into this groove. Keep some pressure on it because it's under tension. All right, that rotates into place. You see how this step is on the firing pin. Compress the spring, firing pin comes off, then the spring, and then this whole assembly. That's your basic K31 field strip for your bolt. You can remove the extractor if you want, but I don't suggest doing it unless you absolutely have to. But if you do, it's really not difficult to remove. Just take a piece of brass punch, hit it right here just a little bit, and it'll pop right out. We're not going to remove that. You'll notice that this bolt actually has what looks like a grease on it, not unlike Cosmoline. But what you'll find is that that is actually a Waffen mint oil. I know I'm not saying it right, but it's basically like a gun grease that the Swiss use for cold weather. And that's actually the way these guns are designed to operate. So if you don't have any of the original oil, which you probably don't, you can probably run something like some light grease or some military LSA or something like that, and you'll be just fine. I wouldn't use a really light oil. I would use kind of a thick oil that stays where you put it because that's the way these guns are designed to operate. So again, going back together, we're going to put the striker cocking piece / safety into the gun, drop your spring on there, compress it, put that back in place just like that. All right, that holds it in place. Pull it out, compress it halfway, just like that. Your bolt sleeve, drop them together. Look at that, fell right together where it needed to be. You're gonna line these two slots up just like this. Hold it just like that with your finger over the top to hold everything in place. You're going to just put these together just like this. Might have to play with it. All right, now what you're looking for, the reason you want to hold these two slots in place is so that you can rotate this to where this slot lines up with this slot in the bolt sleeve and the bolt. And then what you're going to do is take your cocking handle and put it back in the groove and then rotate it in just like that. Then what you're going to do is, with your finger still held here, grab the whole assembly and then put it right back into the cocked position. And the bolt's ready to put back in the rifle, it's ready to use. Nothing to set up, you just reassemble it. All right, as a little added bonus for this bolt disassembly video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to disassemble an Arasaka bolt. All right, this is going to surprise the crap out of you. Take the striker mechanism, push in, rotate clockwise, and the whole thing falls apart in your hand. Very, very, very simple bolt mechanism. Push in on the extractor, push forward, and there's your bolt mechanism. There's nothing to it. Going back together, the exact opposite. Back in place, just like that in the cock position. Spring, line up the little ledge right there with the step and the firing pin. Push forward, compress it and rotate. Just like that. Ready to drop back in the gun, ready to use. Easy cheesy. Just a good example of how simple some of these bolt mechanisms can be. Well people, I appreciate you sitting through this video. I know that it might have been a little bit dry, but hopefully you guys learned something if you didn't know about how to take apart those common bolt mechanisms. A lot of you email me and you ask me about, hey, I'm looking to get into gunsmithing, I'm looking to get into working on my own guns and everything like that. So that's really the most common bolt mechanisms you're going to see come in your shop if you ever do gunsmithing work in terms of Milsurps, especially the Mosin. Learning how to set the firing pin protrusion is a must. In a future video coming up soon, I'm going to show you how to correct a problem with the Mosin where when you go to chamber it, it gives you a lot of difficulty when you go to close the bolt and it kind of like slaps down, like you have to slap it to get it to close. I'm going to show you how to fix that problem. So really, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you like the how-to videos. Appreciate you watching today, and I hope you'll tune in for another episode here in the upcoming week. Have a good day.